You shouldn't compete with anyone but yourself. So it's really easy to get wrapped up and follow these people on Instagram and know these agents are listing, 10 houses a month and really killing it and blah, blah, blah. But you don't know their backstory. Like, you don't know the connections they have in the city. You don't know if they've been an agent for 10, 20 years, and that could be you in 10 or 20 years. If you're just starting out, I think the biggest thing is just figuring out where your place is in the market and what you want out of it, because not everyone wants to make six figures. Not everyone cares to make that. Some people just want to help their friends.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Hodge here, broker of record and owner at the Realty Firm, and this is another edition of the No Secret Agents podcast. We want to showcase a lot of our members who are doing these amazing things in all of the markets that we hold membership. And the cool thing about it is that they are willing to share abundantly with you some of their strategies, tactics, a little bit about themselves, and we are blessed to welcome Stacey Zegers here today, who has been a part of one of our partner companies. I've known Stacey for a while. She's doing incredible things both inside and outside of real estate, and it is an honor to welcome you today, Stacey.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Ryan.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, we've gotten to know each other, and I'm going to share a little bit of a quick story. So Stacey came and interviewed with us at the Realty Firm with myself, right as she was going into the business, and I just couldn't close her at the time. She made another decision to go to another brokerage, and I won't say it always happens, but she is one person that I was like so disappointed. And so when she came back to Prestige Brokerage, we'll talk to in a little bit, I was super, super happy to see her come because she just shares such a massive, massive, abundant spirit, does these great things with investments and her real estate clients. And so, Stacey, it's been great to see you, come into the Realty Firm umbrella anyways. And why don't you take us through, how you got into real estate and a little bit about your background, and then we can kind of transfer, some of the things that you're doing in current space and time.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I sort of started in real estate about 15 years ago. I just, I grew up on a farm. I just had this mentality of, you should never rent. You should always own assets. And I think it was really unconscious, but it was probably from watching my dad, buy farms and us living off the land and all that stuff. So I only rented a very, very short time in my entire life. And then I right away went into buying. So bought my first condo, and shortly after that, I honestly don't know if I had any gurus or anything. I just had this need to purchase more assets. I was a musician at the time, a full-time musician, and I server bartender. And so I knew I would never have a pension. So real estate just made a lot of sense to me as like, that will be my retirement plan. I never anticipated it to expand the way that it did. So basically the short end of it is every 2-3 years, as appreciation happened, I refinanced, I pulled out equity, and I bought the next place. So started with a 2-bedroom condo that I paid $68,000 for on Commissioners in Wonderland Road. Then I bought another 2-bedroom apartment for $58,000. A townhouse, a triplex. And I remember when I bought the triplex, I paid $166,000, and I was losing it because I was paying over $100,000 for a house. And it was so stressful. But at the time I had sort of a mentor who really knew how to run numbers, and he was investing in real estate. So we ran the numbers together, and it was going to cash flow $400 a month. And he was like, is it cash flowing? Yeah. Then, go for it. Like, keep your fear aside, which was such great advice, and just go for it. So we did, went from there to a really interesting property that was a senior's home in the 80s, sat on and off the market for 8 years. I was the quote unquote idiot who bought it, but bought it for next to nothing and spent 4 years slowly picking away, renovating it. I would get up at 7 a.m. My contractor lived in London. He didn't have a license. I would drive him to Ridgetown. We would renovate this property for 7 or 8 hours. I would drive him back. I would bartend till 11 o'clock at night. Plus I was doing gigs on the weekend. And so I just learned a lot about the way actually physically renovating these places work. And that was a massive undertaking as I think I was 27, 28, and I was on my own kind of doing this with my contractor because everyone thought I was insane for buying this property. So that was big. And then, from there, I started buying apartment buildings and then selling off the smaller things. So it's funny to me that everyone talks about the Burr method and like the 1% rule and all these things. When I first heard them, I was like, oh, what's that? And it's what I'd been doing,
right,
for, 10, 12 years at that time when I heard of it. And I just had no idea. I was just following my gut and kind of knew that if you bought properties that needed work, it was going to be a bigger payoff at the end of the day, especially if you can do the work yourself. Definitely. So that's what brought me into real estate, to get my license. And then I just really have a passion of helping other people find financial freedom through purchasing real estate, or I would say equally first-time home buyers, just making sure they have a really good guide, that they have somebody looking out for them, and just making sure that the decision that they're making makes a lot of sense for them.
Super cool. And congratulations on that investment success, which is rare. Would you say that, a lot of your clients, kind of attract you because they know that about you, that you're a savvy investor? I mean, I certainly haven't invested in, other real estate the way that you have, but I do know that having an additional income property is certainly something that, is beneficial for a lot of people that, are kind of fearful of getting into investing in real estate, the risks involved. But does a lot of your client avatar come in for that specific reason?
You know what? I would say I don't think initially. I might be wrong, but I don't think initially. For my first-time home buyers, so I used to do a lot of webinars and things like that. And I really found in those situations, you would get a lot of people like who just immigrated to the country or just moved to the area, kind of seeing what the local person was talking about when it came to first-time home buyers. And then, once I started working with people and they sort of learned my story and how, it wasn't this crazy. Now I think with social media, things can get really overwhelming. You hear all these people talking about use other people's money. Like, I bought 80 units in 1 year and I do this. But mine was such a slow, gradual build. It was when appreciation was 2-3%. Yeah. And, I was able to do it then. So there's no reason why somebody can't do it now when you're talking 10, sometimes 15 or more percent appreciation in a year. So I feel like what ends up happening, and not to like make me sound narcissistic or to my own horn, is that people get a little inspired, that they're like, oh, wow, you did this as like a 20-year-old. Yeah. After I buy my first place, then I want to 2-3 years down the road, buy another one. And so I think it kind of almost honestly comes about people. And then I always joke with them, like, I'm here to help you build your empire. And so they're almost in their minds, you see them shift from, okay, maybe instead of buying the $800,000 dream home today, I'll look for the $400,000 to $500,000 bungalow that I can house hack. And house hacking is basically like, you rent out rooms, you duplex it, and you sort of find a way so that your renters are paying, some of your bills so that you can save more money, and then, fix those places up so that in 2-3 years, that 400 or 450 bungalow is worth 600, then you're going to pull equity out and go and buy the next one and keep doing it as long as the numbers make sense, right? So I do feel like that's happened multiple times now, where somebody has come to me as a first-time home buyer, but they might have always had it deep inside that, it'd be really cool to own a few properties. And then I'm just able to help them on that journey in a way that's not overwhelming.
So awesome. So awesome. You mentioned music as well. So, there's that old show, Behind the Music. This is kind of behind the real estate, but maybe take us through a little bit of your music background. And I know that you've still got a lot of that, going on as well. Yeah.
So I just always loved music. Again, didn't come from a musical family. It's just something that I always had deep inside. And so funny enough, around the first time I bought my first property, I decided I was going to give it 100% with music. So I joke that I had as a teenager, I would pinch every penny. I was like the rare teenagers who had 20 grand in the bank. But when I bought my first place and became a musician, all that money was gone. Everything I made went into music. And so I pursued it for a long time, had again, pulled my mentors and sort of learned from them. And it was a very gradual thing, going to Nashville, doing an album. So I did a full album, an acoustic album solo, released songs to radio, toured across Canada, in my car, sleeping in my car. Wow. And then I remember this one time I was touring with this girl. She wanted to be a songwriter. So she came along with me across Canada, and she couldn't drive a stick shift. And I only drove stick shifts, and I was exhausted. And so she wanted to try to drive. So we filled up the gas in like Seattle. And I was like, hey, I'm going to like get you on the highway. Like, you drive. I'll tell you when to shift. I'll tell you when to hit the clutch, and I'll shift. I got her into fifth, and I'm like, I'm going to sleep. This tank of gas will last 5-6 hours. I'm going to sleep. You wake me up when you're running out of gas and you need to go to a gas station. It's just so dangerous. I don't suggest this to anyone. And so she'd be like, hey, there's like traffic up ahead. And I'd wake up and I'd be like, clutch. And I'd shift her down from shotgun. And drove across Canada basically like that, and just played tons of bars, but then some like huge gigs, and ended up touring Europe from there. And then in 2013, which again, like I feel like I have like nothing going on, so I take on too many projects. So the same year I started my trio Runaway Angel, I bought that building that nobody else would touch that I renovated for 4 years. And so Runaway Angel, we're a trio. And then we started touring Canada and going to the States and touring Europe and playing a bunch of shows. We did 2 albums. Then we took a hiatus in 2018 or 2019. Unfortunately, our lead singer was diagnosed with leukemia, but she's beat it now. Thank God. Nice. It was very touch and go. So it was a hard 4 years just watching what she all was going through. And
sure.
Got back together this past September and just released another single. So why not buy a building too?
Yeah, why don't you throw a little bit more on your plate? It's funny that you talked about the road stories. I just listened to an audiobook, Dave Grohl's The Storyteller. And so lead singer of Foo Fighters and former drummer for Nirvana, for those of you that have been hiding under a rock or aren't as old as me, maybe in the 90s, but just amazing stories as far as like musicians and what they actually go through, before all the glitz and glamour and then beyond. Is it, the music world that inspires you? Is it, in like heavy duty investors, like the real gurus, or, where do you find your inspiration to do this? Because I mean, you've got a family, you've got all these investments, you're, super successful in helping real estate clients. And then you've got this whole musical element to, your portfolio as well. But what do you do to find inspiration, motivation, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, great question. I would say that I'm one of those people, and maybe everyone is. I can't speak for other people, but I feel like I have always had a drive, like deep inside. Like I was making decisions nobody else was making as a teenager, saving everything I made. A lot of people were blowing their money. When I was 16, my parents got divorced. I was from a small town, Wardsville, Ontario. And you know what? My mom was going to move to West Lorne, which a lot of teenagers, I'm sure, would be like, awesome, I'm closer to the high school. I was like, Mom, I want to move to London. I didn't know anyone in London, but I just had this like desire to like go to the city because I had that like musical theater, I thought I would be on Broadway. And that's kind of carried on into real estate and into music and sort of in everything I do. And then I took another like weird step when I was 19. Again, a lot of my friends went to university and college, and I probably would have went for musical theater, but just kind of had a gut feeling not to do it. And so I ended up going for 5 weeks for yoga teacher training in BC with a lady from India. And we were like no cell phones, secluded on Vancouver Island in like this commune. There was 20 of us and I was the youngest one. And we did yoga from 5 a.m. till about 8 p.m. And we ate vegan, and it was just, again, like such a left field choice for me, but felt really good. And since then, I feel like, again, people go through their 20s and they party and they do all that stuff. And that's an awesome journey. But that changed me so much. It turned, like, I became a vegetarian after that. I really realized, as somebody who grew up on a pig farm, that like, ethically, maybe it's not the best choice in the world for how we treat our animals. And, just realizing that we're all we all share an energy. And again, as like a 19, 20-year-old, like who was thinking these things, especially in 2003 or 5 or whenever it was. And so it just changed me. And so I think I was more energetically susceptible to what the world was showing me. So I don't know if it was necessarily like one person inspiring me here, one person inspiring me here, as much as like the collective inspiring me and allowing my gut to point me in the direction that I'm meant to be or that I want to be at that time.
Excellent with intuition is what I would say.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll definitely say that stuff falls to the wayside a lot. Like now that I'm years away from that, you kind of forget and you get busy in life. And I do have kids now, and you do get busy with kids. And it is really funny because, for example, over the last month, I was sort of stressed about this new purchase that I was doing and kind of in real estate. And then I just made a decision that I'm like, I'm not going to push it. Like if no client calls me, like, that's fine. I'm fine. And I sort of just like let work kind of go. And I wasn't forcing music. And then all of a sudden I started songwriting like a ton. It's like I opened the portal to allow the inspiration of like creativity to come into my life. And in 2 days, I wrote like 2 songs that I'm just like really proud of. And it'd been, sometimes months and months since I'd written, and a different vibe when you're in songwriting, where you say you go to Nashville and you make 10 songwriting appointments and you just bang out these 10 songs like it's a business. Like it was more getting back to writing for me. And so now I am really trying to find this balance of art, creativity with the business world, and allowing both to flourish, and finding for me what the best way to make that happen is.
I think that flow is something that when you tap in, I know that whenever I've gotten into really, really creative spaces, whether it's, my book or just, those personal projects that just fuel my fire, the business comes, and it usually comes a lot swifter, because then you're in that space of how do I manage it all and find that rhythm with it. What advice would you give to, maybe a newer agent who's certainly coming into, a different market than what I experienced and likely what you experienced when you first started, or somebody that's maybe having a little bit of a challenge on the business side of it? Any guidance or, your tips or sagely advice for, what a new agent could be doing?
Well, I mean, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but I would say that you shouldn't compete with anyone but yourself. I think that's a really good quote. So it's really easy to get wrapped up and follow these people on Instagram and know these agents are listing, 10 houses a month and really killing it and blah, blah, blah. But you don't know their backstory. Like, you don't know the connections they have in the city. You don't know if they've been an agent for 10, 20 years, and that could be you in 10 or 20 years. If you're just starting out, I think the biggest thing is just figuring out where your place is in the market and what you want out of it, because not everyone wants to make 6 figures. Not everyone cares to make that. Some people just want to help their friends. Some people want to be the hustler who like closes as many deals. And in that sense, I would say like, get a CRM right off the bat, like put in as many contacts that as possible into it, and keep up with those like monthly newsletters. People love to know statistics, because anyone can Google anything nowadays, and people can go on House Sigma and look up this house sold for that, this sold for this. So what can you give them that they can't find? So personally, and like, feel free to steal this, everyone, in January, when I kind of had a gut feeling we were at the bottom of the market, but I wasn't 100% sure, and it was a new year. What I started doing is every Monday, I looked at the pending, so like the sold firm listings. So say there was 100 sold firm listings, and I started graphing or writing down, and could make it a graph, how many sold over asking, how many sold under asking, and how many sold at asking. And then I called the agents who had over asking prices, and I asked them, like, how many offers did you have? What was the circumstance? Why did you think you got over asking? Because in January, like, it was our low for the last, couple of years. That was our lowest market. And so I started doing that weekly. And then I could see before I think anyone else, although people can kind of get a knack for these things, from a statistical level, what was happening and how it was like consistently raising every week. We had more over and over and over asking, to the point where last week we had almost 50%. We had just shy of 50% over asking. So like, here we are at a balanced market. And so I felt, first of all, that's information you can't get anywhere without doing it yourself, because it's not Alstar has started to give it to us weekly, but they just say, okay, this is your pending, this is your new listings. They don't do a deep dive. So I was the only one who somebody could get that information from, because I was creating it myself. And that really helped my team too, because then once a week I'd be like, hey team, just so you know, like this is what's happening on a statistical level. And I feel like clients really appreciate that too, because you really, really know your market when you know more than anyone else does. Or not more, but like different statistics that help them as sellers and buyers to navigate what to offer. Okay, there's 3 offers on this. What does that mean for me? What should I be offering? Well, on average, this is what people are getting, over asking, blah, blah, blah. And it's not an exact science by any means, because I was in a bidding competition a week or 2 ago, and there was 3 offers and it sold 15 under asking. But I mean, it does give you a leg up. And I think people do sort of appreciate you more for the knowledge that you're imparting on them, because they can't go to House Sigma or wherever else and find it.
For sure. I love that. And it is I'm going to say a strategy, or, a place to become the information portal for the consumer. When everybody's got all this readily available information, what information can we give to the consumer that, quite frankly, the downward pressure from all of organized real estate has really taken away from the realtor over the decades. Like years ago, you had a property book and the thing was like gold, where nobody had access to, the online portals or anything like that. And that was the book that we gave our clients. And wow, that was, 100% something that people valued. So how do we continue to provide value? You mentioned your team. Take us inside of, like the brokerage that you're a part of, under the Realty Firm. We're thrilled to work with Prestige, but, tell us a little bit about Prestige and maybe some of the things that are coming up, because I know it's a really, really cool dynamic that is very, very community based. But share with us a little bit about Prestige.
Yeah. So just really quick backstory. I was a solo artist before joining Prestige, but I knew Greg Rains, who was our broker of record. And just, again, sort of had like this gut feeling like, yeah, if he's going, I'm going with him. And also, like, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but I told him, if I'm leaving the other brokerage, I'm going to the Realty Firm.
Cool.
So he was like, well, I'll go talk to Ryan. And then he felt like it was a really good fit too. Nice. So don't think that was a one-way street, that you were like, oh man, she didn't come here, because you were you were very close, and I knew I would end up here one day. So yeah, we came over, and so we're a team of 6 agents, and it just feels really good to be on a team, because you feel like you have people who have your back. Like, this industry can be very lonely. You're a solo agent, and in some teams too. But if I need help with something, we can jump in the group chat, and like within minutes, people are answering questions, and that feels really good. But over and above having each other's back and just like having that communication, it's really important to Greg, and I think really important to us too, that we actually build sort of like the cliche like family atmosphere. And so we do once a month like team activities where we like went to a llama farm. We just did like we went to Adrenaline and did like a self-defense class.
Nice.
And so you allow yourself to be a little bit more vulnerable with these people, and you build a friendship so that you truly are rooting for that person if they get the listing. It's not like, oh, good for you. Oh, I wish I had it. Like you're genuinely excited, because when, whatever that sinking ship metaphor is, everyone kind of lifts each other up. And so it's been a really nice dynamic. It's changed a bit over the last couple of years, but I think the group that we have now is good. So Greg and 5 girls.
Love it. I give Greg a hard time about that one. But what I've really noticed, and I'm going to touch on what you just mentioned about that family style culture. So culture, there's many different types of culture in an organization. And I will say this, usually it comes, kind of that top down leadership in terms of, what kind of culture an organization is going to have. Even at the Realty Firm for a long time, it was kind of more of that like authoritarian, like we know what's what, and this is the way to sell real estate and blah, blah, blah. I kind of transferred into more of that thought leadership, mindset, productivity stuff. But where I really found the culture of our organization flourish was when Sandra brought in that, family style as well, which is really just supported in the overall vibe. But what I noticed with Prestige is a lot of really good things going on in the community, contributing to the community, engaging the community. And I would say that that's probably not, the idea isn't I'm going to do this so that I get more real estate business, but there's a natural correlation between that. What plans do you guys have coming up over the next little while for Prestige, and what's coming up next for you, Stacey, and the rest of 2023 and beyond?
Yeah, so we have, I would say Greg and Aaron are putting on a charity golf tournament. So it's in support of kids sport, and that's something that that means a lot to them. Definitely giving back to charity is huge, because I think you can attest to the fact that you can get as many accolades and you can make as much money as you can, but if you're not sharing it in some capacity, then what's the point? It doesn't feel as good as unless you can share it. So we definitely do that. We do a lot of family events where we pay for, people to come to Custermans or whatever. And honestly, it just puts a smile on our face. I know personally, now that I have kids, my whole thought process for children and making other people happy has definitely changed than before having kids. Not that I didn't necessarily care as much, but I didn't see it. I wasn't in their shoes. So definitely from that aspect. And then personally, I live in West Lorne area now. So I'm trying to do as many things for that area too, because unfortunately, when you live more in a rural area, you tend to rely on the city for stuff. So there's things that, I feel like we could gain from that was sort of lack. So for example, I'm going to put on movie nights in the park, things like that I'm super happy to sponsor. And again, it's not necessarily for recognition. It's more for what is something that my kids would benefit from. And therefore, I think every kid would appreciate and benefit from that's potentially lacking. What are the things that I can give back? So doing things like that within the community, again, in that area means a ton to me, because exactly what I said. I just think, when you move there too, there's not a ton to do. We play soccer in the summer, we play hockey in the winter, and over and above that, there's not a lot going on. So really racking my brain to give as many activities and things as possible to the community is huge for me. And then personally and professionally in 2023, I'm going to work on this new building that I bought, keep working with my clients, obviously, to help them find their financial freedom, and maybe record another tune. So a lot of different things.
A lot of moving parts, and I think that it lends well to when you serve and support others in any capacity. Success is never an issue.
We'll see. Sure. I mean, I liked, where was I? I was actually at a music summit. And then, so one of the questions was, what was your definition of success? Because it's not everyone's definition, right? For me, success could just be raising two great children. I do think that it changes over time. So whether it's making six figures or whether it's selling 100 homes, or whether it's putting food on the table, we're in an inflation crisis. I think that personally, my definition of success keeps changing, and it's coming from a more humble place now than it would have years ago, when it was about hustle, numbers on a page.
Oh yeah, I learned that the hard way and come full circle with it as well. Where can people find you for real estate, for music, wherever, whatever you'd like to share as far as where people that are watching this can check you out?
Yeah, so if you go to staceyzegers.com, you can find all of my real estate related listings and everything like that. Probably the easiest way to find me, connect with me, and then follow my journey in all three aspects of my life, and many more, is at Stacey Zegers Realtor, which is Instagram.
Super. Everybody, Stacey Zegers, who continues to inspire and serve. One more person that has, come in and contributed to all of you. So be sure to check her out. She does some amazing things, and her music is phenomenal. We are thrilled to continue to support people inside of the Realty Firm and outside of the Realty Firm with the No Secret Agents podcast, where we want to showcase people that may serve and inspire you to do a little bit more, learn something new, and we want to continue to come from that place of abundance. So Stacey, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Ryan. This was fun. I was nervous, but it was good.
Awesome. We will see you all very, very soon.